What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So we're taking a look at Assassin's Creed Shadows here on the Lenovo Legion Go. I've already tried this on the Steam Deck and the MSI Claw, and well, performance is a bit lower than you might expect, and this is more, I think, because we can't really turn off all the ray tracing features, and we've seen this in games like Indiana Jones as well. So it brings that base FPS down a bit, but with in-game frame generation and being willing to lower your resolution, you can definitely make it a pretty decent experience here, at least in my opinion. Now, as far as the settings go, we're going to try a couple of things here. You might be able to creep yourself up to 1000p, but you're going to introduce more FSR than quality, maybe balanced or performance, to keep things up there in real world gameplay. And again, frame generation most likely is going to be what you want to use as well. We're going to have a custom setting of low preset with medium textures and medium on the virtual texture, everything else still on low, and diffused ray tracing only on the hideout. Again, you can't turn off ray tracing completely. But before we get into that gameplay with those settings, right here we just have the low preset at 800p and 1000p running with and without frame generation, as you can see here. And there's not going to be a huge difference in the benchmark, but there are a few FPS, which when you're using in-game frame gen is double that amount typically, right over your base. So really in real world gameplay, we're trying to pull a lot more out of the game than what we're seeing in here. And when I try to go up to 1000p, I really do have to go to balance or performance on FSR instead of quality with 800p, and for me it's just not a great trade-off on the visuals that way, and so I'm opting more for the 800p with FSR quality when we get into the actual gameplay and just running a game here. Doesn't mean you can't pull off something at higher resolution or use more FSR or something like that, but that's just where I'm more comfortable with running things here, at least for now. So anyways, going through this, and you can kind of see what the performance is like, at least this way, for the in-game benchmark and where things kind of land for us there. So what I want to get into next real quick is we'll go ahead and change these settings over to kind of what I want to use for the game, which again is going to be the 800p. It's going to be dynamic resolution off, AMD FSR on quality, FSR frame generation on, motion blur off, that low preset diffused hideout only, and then medium just on the texture streaming pool and the virtual textures. That's just pretty much because anything else I do is going to continue to kind of lower the FPS, so that's kind of what I wound up sticking with here. And just taking a quick look at parts of the benchmark, this is obviously a little bit better performance than what we were getting with just the low preset of what we were using there. This works out pretty well for the most part. Now, again, when we get into the real world gameplay, which you'll see, we are under 30 FPS more often than we are here in the benchmark. But because I do recommend using in-game frame generation, kind of like how Monster Hunter is or other games, it just, even at this lower FPS at under 60 FPS with 25 to 35 as our base, frame generation actually feels really good in this game, works really well, and I definitely recommend using it, at least for now, until maybe they give us some more options on the settings. But getting away from that benchmark and looking into real world gameplay, you'll see what I mean. In more social areas or where it's more busy, even with these settings on here and running at 25 watts, it's still going to be a little bit messy and it's going to struggle at keeping that 30 FPS or higher here. So again, it's going to depend on where you're at, of course, in the game, but these are some of the areas that were a little bit harder to run. It didn't seem to matter what kind of weather effects, wind, rain, whatever. Similar performance no matter what as I was playing a couple hours into this. But yeah, you can kind of see how things work there. Much different than the benchmark. So we'll go in here and turn frame generation on. Definitely something I recommend using. Even if you're not into frame generation, just give it a shot, because the input latency is actually quite good here, and it's way better than using AFMF 2.1 or lossless scaling, which haven't been great in this game compared to the in-game frame gen for me. And so just give it a shot. I think it does smooth out the game. It does feel pretty good, and input latency is definitely doable here for me. I didn't notice any huge input latency over not having frame gen on. I think the game looks fine this way. No major artifacting or ghosting that I was necessarily running into, other than some shadow stuff and things like that you might see. But anyways, I'm going to leave it there, let you guys see some of the gameplay here with these settings, and you can kind of adjust this and run it how you want to. But at least the game is what I would call playable on the Legion Go, on the Claw, basically on the Steam Deck, and we'll be looking at the Ally X next. Alright guys, thanks a lot for coming to check out the video. As always, I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.